This is the Invincible Podcast on TV Podcast Industries, and this time we're talking about Invincible Season 3, Episode 8, the finale. I thought you'd never shut up.
Oliver, get out of here!
We can beat this guy! I know it!
Go! Idiot. You need all the help you can get. The time I spent killing him might have given you a moment to gather your thoughts. Maybe even outwit me. Where is your Viltrumite heart? Until I see it beating my hand, I won't believe you have one. Show me your power. Show me the rays!
Welcome back, fellow Guardians, to the Invincible Podcast on TV Podcast Industries. We're talking about the finale of Season 3 of Invincible. It's Episode 8. It's I Thought You'd Never Shut Up. Yes, I'm one of your hosts, Chris.
And I am your other host, Derek. And I would say after 904 podcasts, I think we are right now, I'd say you never thought we'd shut up.
Yeah, but I hope they think that they hope we never shut up.
That would be,
and to keep going and going and going and going and going and going. And yeah, sometimes it feels like that, but going.
Excellent. Yeah, hopefully. You're enjoying the podcast. And yes, we're here with the final episode of Season 3, another massive big punch-up episode.
Yes, but can you believe it's already the end of the season?
I know.
It's here. 8 episodes, nearly like 7 and a bit hours, just gone so fast.
Absolutely.
Flew. And so many strong episodes, so many. I knew what was coming. I assumed they'd finish with this just based on the comic book kind of history.
Yeah.
But just did not think they'd lean in as much as they did to the blood, gut, gore, kind of punchy, ready.
Mm-hmm.
So really interested to kind of hear what you kind of feel now, as this is an episode as a singular kind of entity, which we don't usually do. We usually try and take it as kind of, we like to kind of think of it as in that one point, but also it's fair. Like how does it play against some of the others, and especially two punchies back to back?
Yeah.
I want to get your thoughts on this.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll chat all about it as we get into our detailed episode, spoiler-filled discussion. But first up, we do have some feedback on last week's episode, in episode 7. We got some emails in since last week, Chris. We got an email in from Coffee and Vodka on his thoughts on episode 7. He says, "Greetings, fellow self-defeating defenders. Could be worse. Could be Daredevil or Invincible. For all of Mark's improvements, somehow the universe knew to up the difficulty level. Turns out Power Puck, Lightning Dolt, or whatever was just foreshadowing. Keeping to the thin silver lining, it was nice to see Eve on the injured list rather than the dead one. And who would have thought Junior could be so level-headed, especially in a crunch situation? Rex really Iron Manned himself in a heroic moment that was both telegraphed and unexpected, and just when he was almost becoming likable. And that ending, it really makes work of waiting for a week. Here's to hoping for a little daddy and Alan intervention. 5 bad marks, mommy issues, and flying Graysons out of 5. Peace and take care. Coffee and Vodka." Love it, Coffee and Vodka. I love your flying Graysons. That was Robin's family, Chris.
It was.
That's my DC knowledge there.
Yeah, that's it.
I've got a lot of Batman knowledge. I do remember that, though.
Dick Grayson. Nightwing, gotta keep it going. Thanks, Coffee and Vodka. Yeah, look, the analogy and connection to the Iron Man. Actually, this would have happened before Iron Man.
Comic book, yes.
Yeah, before the comic book, yes, exactly. So definitely there's an analogy there. But yeah, I like 5 bad mark and mummy issues. Yeah, out of 5.
Absolutely. Great stuff. Thanks for your thoughts, Coffee and Vodka. I'm glad you enjoyed the episode.
Yeah, thanks, Coffee and Vodka. Also, over on email, we got one from Meryl Smith, who had this to say: Welcome back, fellow alternate marks. This was absolutely something special and glorious. The Invincible War, the double whammy of both Angstrom and Powerplex, has pushed Mark's guilt and moral compass to near breaking point. Also, which alternate mark was your favourite? Fun fact, Conquest is voiced by none other than Jeffrey Dean Morgan. So now we got a Walking Dead reunion, and it looks like we might get some justice for Glenn next week. Now, as for the Rex of it all, with all that development he was getting, it was almost signposted what was coming. I even reread the comics to get prepared for it, and it still hurt. Also, given that this comes after a certain moment in X-Men 97, it's a true double whammy. Can't wait for the epic season finale. 5 remembered homages, Aaron Paul yelling into the night, invincible rampages and clashes with a Conquest out of 5.
Fantastic, bro.
Yeah, did not just connect the X-Men 97 piece there. I'm not going to say much more because obviously some people may have not watched it and we don't want to spoil that fantastic moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, did not make that connection until you just said it there. Well done.
Very good, Meryl. Yeah. And also the other connection I didn't make is, of course, the Walking Dead TV show was very well known for building up a character, expanding their world, giving them really big storylines just before killing them off. So we should have expected that with Rex getting so many extra storylines, apparently a lot more than he had in the comics. My understanding is he doesn't have any relationship with Ray because Ray is a different character in the comic books. So, so that doesn't happen at all. So that whole side of him that we learn in the show is completely different to what we learn in the comic books about him. So I really liked it. Should have suspected that was leading to his death, though, as a Walking Dead fan that I am.
Come on, you got that Kirkman in you. You understand it.
Exactly. Thanks so much, Meryl. We also have some feedback over on Facebook from Victor Von Doom, who says, on episode 7, some of the scariest cast so far. Aaron Paul, Jonathan Banks playing Britt, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, and Doug Bradley. Sounds like a current day horror list of who's who. The animation seems really amped up as well compared to the previous episode. Great stuff, Victor. Yeah. There's such a great voice cast on here, and a lot of that's down to Robert Kirkman, his pull, his connections to all of these people that he brings on board for his shows, and I guess just the weight as well of the show itself. It does have a really respected view from people around. The cast that's in there has been amazing from the beginning. Yeah,
and exactly that, and it's also then not just you've got some of that Bezos money. Let's be fair. It's Amazon money there, so they're able to kind of back up some of that the dump truck of money and go, hey, you interested? Like, maybe it's not a dump truck, it's a pickup truck of money. It's a semi truck of money.
Yeah, it's definitely a massive chunk of money. You're totally right, but it's big enough to encourage some major people on board.
Yes,
There's lots of people that want to work together as well, who haven't worked together, even if they're not in the same room. So that's quite cool. It's interesting though, Victor, that you put Jonathan Banks in the category of a current day horror list of actors. Jonathan Banks has been a favorite of mine since my favorite TV show as a kid, which was called Wise Guy. He played Uncle Frank in that. One of my favorite shows that most people haven't even heard of these days because it never got a real home release after it was on TV, but it was an excellent TV show that Jonathan Banks was he was the FBI agent that was dealing with the undercover cop. So he was always one of my favorite characters, and he's been in lots of stuff since then, but I never would think of him as horror. I always think of him as the FBI guy. Yeah,
I suppose for me it's probably the Breaking Bad kind of Better Call Saul of it all. That's where I know him from. Right. But it's also he's that actor that you just know his face.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's kind of as soon as his face appears, you're like, oh, I know this guy. Oh, no, he's a somewhat semi-popular guy. He's either going to die or be a returning character.
Exactly. And hopefully we do see him return as Britt in future episodes as well.
Yeah.
I was really hoping we'd have Chris, but unfortunately he's not available to record for this week, so I'm not able to get him back for the feedback. But at least I'm here with you guys accompanying me for your feedback on last week's episode. First up, David Mr. Writer says, wow. So I just finished episode 6, and boy, oh boy, did they just create a supervillain. I didn't think they would off an actual child. It helped that this is a cartoon, but wow, it was an unexpected twist, but good twist after all. This is also the first episode where Mark wasn't so annoying. On to episode 7. Wow, incredible episode. Non-stop action. The Mark variants fighting is how I wish Mark would fight. Also, villain from episode 6 is no longer a super villain. All you gotta do is hug him to make him useless. Hilarious. Can't wait for the finale to see how it all ties up. Great stuff. Thanks, David, for your thoughts on episode 6 and episode 7 as well. It's just funny that you mentioned that Mark's really annoying in episode 6, or up until episode 6 of season 3, and then suddenly episode 7 is all Marks from all different types of Marks from all different places. And in the finale, the other piece that you mentioned is how he will fight from now on, I guess. Not going to spoil that until myself and Chris discuss it in the episode later on as well. Great stuff. Thanks, David. We also got some feedback in from Dr. Bob Phillips, who says, revenge hath no fury like a multi-dimensional megalomaniac scorned, as Shakespeare didn't write. Can't see how this can wrap up in one episode with the arrival of the Viltrumites, fridging of Eve, destruction of most of the planet, and an absence of Alan. Very good, Dr. Bob. Well, you've hopefully seen the finale now, and thankfully, there is no fridging of Eve here at all. In fact, that just took Mark off the board. So he didn't want to fight, which is usually the thing that drives a character in stories to go and fight, is his girlfriend or his partner getting taken out. Here, Mark takes himself off the field and then eventually goes back in, and then we see an even more powerful Eve coming in, joining up with them, and the two of them team up. So, isn't that kind of cool? They didn't do a fridging episode of the show, thankfully. So that's a nice change. But really good to hear your thoughts on episode 7. Hopefully you've seen the finale, and we'll hear your thoughts on that next time. Finally, we got an email in from Robert Williams on episode 7 who says, this was insane. So much to say, and as always, you guys did a great job breaking down everything. But a couple of things from me. Would you like to see spin-offs of some of these superheroes shown? Like the kid dressed as a businessman, guy with the big hammer, the werewolf-looking guy? There were so many, Robert, weren't there? There are so many little cameos in here. The Invincible War had loads of cameos from characters across all of the Image comics, but for the TV show, they kept it to characters that have appeared within the Invincible comics or the spin-off comics, or at least comics created by Robert Kirkman. So I'm reliably informed that the ones you mentioned there are Business Baby, who is the toddler in a business suit, who, yeah, I'd absolutely love to see a spin-off of. There's Kid Thor there as well. That's the guy with the hammer. So very similar to, Thor in the Marvel comics, of course. And the last one you mentioned there was Wolfman, the werewolf-looking one, also appearing in the comic books as well. I would take a spin-off of any of these characters, and I hope we're going to see more of them. We've been very focused on Mark and his story, as we mentioned, over the course of the Invincible coverage. But there's loads more story to tell. This show can go for a few more years. There's 150 issues, I think, of the comic, 160, something like that. And we're about issue 60 or so far. So there will be lots to cover for about 5 or 6 seasons, maybe even more, and then hopefully they will have some spin-offs for some of these characters, so we'll get to learn much more about them. But there was so many thrown in here without even a mention of their names, so I had to do a little bit of digging to find out who they were. Who'd you like to see a spin-off with, Robert? I'd love to know. The second question Robert said was, how cool would it have been if Conquest had shown up during the 3-Day War? Interesting. I really love the idea that the whole place is just laid low completely, and then Conquest just arrives going, right, ready for another fight? It's time for you to die. So I thought it was a really interesting choice to do it that way. But if Conquest had turned up there, and it would have been Conquest versus all of the Invincibles, hey, maybe that's something we will see in the future. We may see a Viltrumite versus multiple Marks from different universes teaming up against the Viltrumites. Maybe that's how they beat them in the end, and we don't know. We know multiverses exist, but let's see how that plays out on the show. Great stuff. And Robert continues, I can't wait to see Alan and Omni-Man show up. Great show, Derek and Chris. Chris, it's great to hear from you. I'm missing you in the Daredevil show. Looking forward to next week. Cheers, Robert Williams. Oh, it's so good to hear from you, Robert, as well. And yes, Chris will be back on the Daredevil show. He is only able to podcast with me once a week. And unfortunately, he's not able to catch up on Daredevil this week. So that's why he's not podcasting with me at the moment. So he will be back, I think, for episode 4 of Daredevil. He's catching up on all those episodes. And he'll be back from next week. We're recording on Thursday night. So if you want to get some feedback in for Daredevil, you can also email us as usual to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. Really enjoying watching that show too. Back over to myself and Chris on our chat about Invincible. thanks so much for your feedback. Thanks for sending it in to us. Please keep on emailing us in your feedback on Invincible to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com or over on our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries.
Derek, do you want to tell us who gave us what, where, when, and how with the episode details?
Yeah, the show, of course, is based on the comic book series written by Robert Kirkman and illustrated by Corey Walker and Ryan Otley. And the show, of course, developed for Prime Video by Robert Kirkman. And this episode, once again, written by Robert Kirkman. The episode was directed by Saul Choi, who directed episode 201, 206, and the third episode of this season as well. So lots of great credits once again.
Yes. Once you know what they have done and once you understand those episodes, makes so much sense.
Absolutely. Chris, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for the finale of Invincible Season 3? I thought you'd never shut up.
Sure. The Viltrumite Conquest has been dispatched to Earth to kill Mark for not taking over Earth. As they battle across the planet, Mark learns that Conquest just does this for the fun of it, but he is lonely in his solitude. In their battle, Conquest destroys city after city and kills human after human across the globe, never slowing down. Oliver tries to help his big brother, but is almost ripped in half by Conquest. Eve musters up a lot of her power and battles well against the Viltrumite, but ultimately he crushes her and returns to his battle with Mark. Mark believes she's dead, but Eve unlocks her true power and returns to help him to finally defeat Conquest. Later on, Mark vows to Oliver that he will kill anyone who ever threatens their family again. Meanwhile, under the city, the Sequid brain slugs from Mars have been gathering, and a familiar face returns for a post-credit scene.
So yeah, this is another big battle episode, as we mentioned up front. There's a lot of fighting going on across the globe this time. We mentioned in the last episode that when all of the Invincibles attacked, they destroyed about 8 or 9 cities, and this just goes around the planet as Conquest beats the hell out of Mark.
Yep, and I don't know what it is about Viltrumites, but they really love shoving people into other people, and at a very big speed.
Yeah, and that was definitely on purpose. That was the callback to what Nolan did to Mark back in season 1. That was just in one train. Let's get into it. Let's talk about our point number 1, the initial battle with Conquest. Interestingly, of course, with the voice that we had here with Jeffrey Dean Morgan playing Conquest, this to me felt like the overwhelming odds that faced Rick Grimes when Negan came to town. Negan just said, you can do whatever you want to, but I am here. I will take you out. I will kill you. I will kill your family. I will either kill your family in front of you, or I'll kill you and then kill your family after you're dead. And that's basically what Conquest is saying to Mark. He just enjoys the killing. That has been his job now for centuries, millennia perhaps, going around the galaxy, destroying planets and taking them over and killing everybody on them. He says he's been given this mission that from the Viltrumites that doesn't matter what you need to do, but this guy has pissed us off enough that you can do whatever you want to, as long as at the end of it you have the planet. And he has taken that and running with it.
Oh yeah, and running it straight through Mark.
Yeah.
This man is a heavy hitter, and Jeffrey D. Morgan embodies that gravelly, big, commanding voice. And is really, actually, without knowing it really is the perfect actor to voice this character. Just that menacing presence, if you will, that voice. But it's great. It's great. It's a great setup for that. This Mark is just like, I'm too done for this. I'm done. I'm like, and we get straight into the punchy, calling back so much of the Nolan Mark fight, calling back to so much of the other fights we've seen throughout the seasons. But really what we get here is they amp up a lot of the animation and they kind of lean into, okay, well, look, we're going to give you a punchy episode, but we're going to give you a punchy globe spanning. Mark is thrown through buildings left, right. You get that. Some of the animation really really well portrays the force of the impacts of when they hit each other.
Yeah.
So like we see one where it is like the second that they hit each other, the buildings explode around them.
Yeah.
We also see people explode around them as the shockwave of the two of them fighting continues out from the point of impact.
Yeah, like there's a couple of great moments in the fight that I really enjoyed. There's one where Mark knocks Conquest into space, and the two of them are fighting in space, and that's when Conquest has a bit of blood that falls out of his mouth, and he turns it into a love heart and sends it towards Mark because he's so happy that he's finally getting this fight. Love that bit. And then Mark being knocked to the ground, and it's almost like an atom bomb. Mark is lying on the ground, hearing the noise of the whistling, effectively, of the speed that Conquest is coming towards him at. And as Conquest hits him, the shockwave takes out all the buildings around them as well. I thought that was just really interesting that they're able to do those additional things. Again, we just had a massive fighting episode last episode. This episode have another fighting episode, but so many different types of movements in here. The fact that Conquest is, as you say, calling back to that battle with Nolan. He again takes Mark and pushes him through loads of humans, but this time it's even more brutal, I think, than the train scene was for Mark, because Mark almost knows what's coming this time, which makes it much worse. I think last time he didn't suspect that Nolan would have been that brutal with him. Here he's got Conquest pushing him through all types of families, all types of people. I think it starts off on a tourist beach and pushes all the way through a city effectively. So he's killing everything around him. You see kids losing arms and legs, and animals dying, and everything around getting killed by Conquest pushing him through. And all the while throughout this battle, you have Conquest telling Mark, "Oh, that's great. Oh yeah, give me more. You can do this. Don't give up right now. No, I'm not going to give you an opportunity to surrender now. Don't give up. You still have an opportunity here to beat me. All you need is the right motivation, So all the way throughout, it's not even that Conquest is taunting him. It is like he's telling him, I'm loving this and you're giving me exactly what I want to hear.
No, 100%. And that the one that sticks for me is the Mark. It's one of the later points where Mark is actually loses it and goes after him. Mm-hmm. And what we see is he really hits Mark, and then Mark, he is diving toward him. I think it's after one of the Oliver punches. And Conquest just goes, no. And almost mid-flight stops Mark, and you just see this force hitting a force. Such a just the animation or the style that they chose to show off the wall of force. I don't know. It's just the air being kind of clapped back. It's just such an interesting, because you wouldn't expect, but it is that kind of poof.
Yeah.
And again, seeing these two fly, the chilling point for me is that monologue that Conquest gives, which is I am alone, and I've come to enjoy this, and that is just such.
Everybody else treats me like I'm crazy. Really? Do they? You seem to take a lot of pleasure in this. Yeah, absolutely. It's just really brutal, and I think because he's setting it up that he's never going to give up, Mark will have to kill him. And that had been a discussion back. Again, we talked about it last episode that Mark thought he killed Angstrom Levy and was giving himself a lot of pressure for that. But it had always been in the instruction from Nolan that Mark was holding back, and if he held back, that he would never see his true potential. And here you have a Viltrumite on planet Earth telling Mark, don't hold back, because if you hold back, all that's going to happen is you'll die before the rest of your family. That's all that's going to happen. I'm going to kill everybody else afterwards, so don't hold back or else you will die.
No, and it just gets so violent. We see Eve. Eve is then kind of forces herself to get out of bed and does reveal that Mark is invincible to her family, and convinces Cecil to kind of transport her there. And she gives herself an upgrade. She kind of goes full Iron Woman on it.
Yeah.
Kind of Riri Williams. And gives pretty well. Like, she packs a powerful punch, and is fantastic to see. Like, this upgraded, like, that one point where she just condenses the air around Conquest.
Yeah.
Just fantastic. But again, Conquest is all powerful to a degree, and ultimately kills her. And it's shocking. Shocking how he does.
Yeah.
It's great.
Absolutely. He breaks every bit of the armor that she created from the air for herself. You know, it's an interesting one, that conversation with Cecil. You know, you kind of realize how powerful Atom Eve can be, and we haven't seen her use those powers except for the Atom Eve special. We haven't seen her use the powers that she has for anything other than occasional shields, I guess. You know, that's kind of how she's treated. You know, you're not able to use your power very well, just use shields. She knows deep in herself how much she can actually use. She tells Cecil, I can control atoms. I can definitely go up against this guy. I might be the only person that can stop a Viltrumite from killing the Earth now that he's fighting against Mark, which is why Cecil lets her go. But that moment when Conquest breaks through that armor that she's created, breaks through each individual piece, again, it's because he's toying with her in a way. He could have just broken off the helmet part and crushed her head, and then, you know, broken off the midsection part and had the same effect, but he breaks every single element of the shielding that she has before killing her. But killing her doesn't kill her. It makes her even stronger, I guess.
It does. Again, for those who hadn't seen the Atom Eve special, they may not be aware of some of the blocks and the pieces. So those of us who have seen it kind of knew where things might go. Those who read the comics definitely knew where things would go. But it's interesting to see that how they explain it, which is that, yes, these blocks that were given to her when these blocks were put in place when she were given her powers and that this is, when these blocks and or a force or dying, into trucks, it does kind of, she can be godlike almost.
Yeah, it's effectively she's been able to reform her body without the blocks in place.
Yeah.
So now she has full control of her powers, which is massively beneficial when you've got a Viltrumite that's beating the hell out of everything around him. I do also want to mention that Oliver does give it a good go.
Yeah, he does.
You know, he
it's
tries.
Almost like, well done.
What I like about it is that, again, it's almost giving the opposite version of what we've seen Mark be like. You know, from the beginning, he's being told, release everything, fight with your full power or else you're never going to win. And Oliver is actually going out there and fighting with his full power. It's not like he's able to kill Conquest, but he's giving it a good go and he will die trying. Whereas Mark feels like, maybe at the end of this fight, I'll get to go home and live the rest of my life. He is still holding back because we see at the end he is able to muster up even more power than we've seen him use before.
Yeah,
but it does feel like at least Oliver in his attempt is giving it his best go. But wow, that scene where Conquest puts him over his head and is about to rip him in half. I was wondering where they're going to go there.
Oh yeah, well, seeing that they just chopped a kid's arm off.
Yeah.
And the sound audio on this is just bone crunchingly good. It is
quite literally.
It is literally. The noise is hard to watch. I feel they may get like people going, oh, this is a bit too much now. But let's wait and see. For me, it's the culmination of this battle. It's how Mark defeats Conquest. It is the headbutt repeatedly. For me, it's just the covering of, like, as he just repeatedly is forced to use the one appendage he has left, his head, to beat Conquest to a pulp.
Hardest bone in the body, as I've heard from every action movie since 1986, Chris.
It's true, yeah. Rambo did a lot with it.
And that moment when he finally musters up the punch that cracks Conquest's glove or gauntlet almost, which breaks Mark's first wrist, and then he breaks his second wrist, punching him even more. Like, it's just so brutal when you've got this character who has both wrists broken and also a leg broken as well. And then he has to use his head to kill Conquest, and he just crushes his entire face in. Just so brutal. Like, they're running out of animations for crushed in heads. Like, Conquest did look quite like Angstrom Levy at the start of the last episode, but it was absolutely bone crunching. It was, it was pretty brutal. And it is, Glenn finally getting the crushing Negan's head moment that we all wanted in Walking Dead. Wouldn't that have been great if Glenn had a baseball bat behind his back and reached out and crushed Negan's head back then? It's an interesting one, I'm sure, for Robert Kirkman, and that's the reason why Jeffrey Dean Morgan is here as well, I'm sure. As a fan of Walking Dead till the end, I know the ratings just tanked after the Glenn death episode of The Walking Dead. I was a fan of the comic books. The comic book didn't tank after the death of that character. It was just a character that died on the page. People weren't massively happy with it, but they went on and read the comics because characters died every month in that comic book. Whereas on the TV show, everybody loved Stephen Yeun so much in that role that they couldn't get past him being killed in such a brutal way on TV. And I think the ratings never really recovered after that episode of the season of that show. So, yeah, unfortunate way. But at least Robert Kirkman gets to have a little moment between those two characters again here, where Glenn gets his own back.
Yep. And very much our point too was it's a new day, and we were going to talk about how kind of the creation of the new Eve, the new Adam Eve. The point I'll just quickly call out is her power is still a bit off, because we do see that as she magics away Mark's clothes at the end of a new day, they do start to, she puts them back together, but they start to run. Yeah. And there's this kind of weird
ooze that's coming out of his clothes. Yeah, I was like, are they just is it gonna bleed back and it'll be back to Invincible's original coloured costume? Is that what's gonna happen? It's gonna go back to the yellow and blue, or instead of the black and blue? Maybe not. But I was wondering what that was. But yeah, I do love, the fact that we have the two of them so broken and beaten, but they're still teenagers, so they're going to go back and have sex in Mark's face, but they do have one extra facility that none of the rest of us would have if we'd broken both of our arms and our legs. She has the ability to get her boyfriend naked just by the click of her fingers, or without having to pull a jumper over the head of a guy with two broken arms, who would just be screaming for hours on end.
It's like,
That's just painful. But hey, horny teenagers, they find ways around.
Exactly. The one bit they did miss here was a narrator coming in. They should have just put the narrator come in and then did the post credit, but I just didn't know why. See,
personally, I was so impressed with that because we talked about it during the season. I thought they might do a joke of the narrator doesn't get there in time. They're already naked and they're already having sex before he comes in or something. But I respected the fact that they didn't want to push that joke for a third time, because again, we don't actually get to see Alan and Nolan at all in the everything after the end of the season. We saw them team up back in episode 4 of the season, but we don't know what's happened with them since. But that does take us on to our final point, everything after. This episode really was about that battle between Conquest and Mark, and it did take up the majority of the episode. But I do like that we have a wrap up for some storylines and a setup for some massive storylines to come in the future of Invincible. But a big emotional kind of send off for Explode. We have his funeral, and we have the members of the two teams that he was with all getting together. Interestingly, with Robot taking the lead. and very definitively put there, it's Robot is the one that's standing up giving the speech, not Rudy. Rudy's almost programmed Robot to give the speech, or he's sending the thoughts through Robot to give the speech. But he's not able to do it because he wouldn't be able to stand up in front of the audience and give the speech. It's just such an interesting way of underlining that the two of them are becoming different but the same.
Yeah.
You know, that there is a Robot character and there's also a Rudy character.
And Rex now.
And now a Rex, yes, exactly. That's the decision that he's made in honor of Rex. He will take the name of Rex because he created his body from Rex Blout back in season 1. So that's a really interesting choice. And we have Monster Girl telling her that she loves him and saying,
very
"I
cute.
love you, Rex." Very cute.
Yeah. For me, this funeral is poignant. Like it is. We do see that Adam try and give her speech, and then we do get that fun, kind of lovely teenage love piece between Mark and Adam as she runs away from the pedestal after trying to give the speech, and then Mark is just smiling at her, and he's like, "I thought I was going to lose you."
He's just so
and you're
happy.
here.
Yeah.
And so it's just a nice bookend on that kind of very sad piece of having lost Rex and gained lost a Rex and gained a Rex, I suppose was the best way of putting it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I also liked, and we didn't really talk about Debbie much in the last couple of episodes, but I like that she's accepted that she has now got Mark and Oliver, both of them, that she's willing to allow the two of them to go out and fight, even though she doesn't want to them go out and fight these incredible beings that are now coming in attack. But we did have a really good moment towards the end of the episode where Debbie is questioning why she ever had that anticipation and hope that Mark would get his powers at some point in the future. It's almost like she was gaslit by Nolan into wanting to have her child be put in harm's way because of how she was brought into this whole thing. She's blaming herself. She's kind of saying, you know, well, if it wasn't for me falling in love with Nolan, then all these horrible things wouldn't be happening to either of the two of you.
Well, also, if she hadn't fallen in love with Nolan, Mark would not be around.
Mark wouldn't be around, exactly. Exactly. But just some interesting moments with her there. I really like the character of Debbie. I like that they give her these kind of interesting discussions, I suppose, or interesting points and perspectives on what's going on.
No, 100%. For me, the setup now next is all the bits that like what will come in future seasons.
Yeah.
First and foremost, the Sequids.
Yes.
Back again, we had seen them survive last season. And just getting that kind of check back in. Oh, there's a lot of them there. Yes. They're all under the city.
There is. And they're already taking control of some humans as well. This will be fine. They're all just going to be like the Shapesmith, right? They're all going to be lovely, nice, friendly people from Mars, aren't they?
Sure. That's not what's already happened. So I like that they're setting this up, reminding people that this is still a threat. Moving to the technicians.
Yep.
Just reminding you that Angstrom is still on the board. You may get him next season, you may not get him next season, but just reminding you that he is there.
Well, also the big thing that the technicians do have him in their control. He says, "Oh, I get it now. I know what you want. You lost your home, so you want a new home world." And they say, "Oh no, that's just the start of what we need you for." So they are going to be a threat at some point in the future as well, which is very interesting. We get a little odd moment, I guess, for Battle Beast. Just a reminder that Battle Beast, who had been sort of involved in the fall of the Viltrumite prison, that allowed Alan and Nolan to get away. He was floating out in space, all frozen up, and some spacefaring creatures pick him up. And the only thing that he says when he wakes up is, "I need more." So
more battle.
Yeah. I do want to mention, I think I said earlier on in the season that Battle Beast reminds me of the Klingons from Star Trek. Well, of course he does, because the voice is Michael Dorn, who played Worf in Star Trek. Which I just happened to have forgotten for some reason, and was going, "Oh, of course he reminds me of Klingon. They cast him really well." But that is kind of what Battle Beast is. I would say, once again, the casting reflected what was in the mind of the creator in that case as well.
Yeah. We get D.A. Sinclair.
Yes, we
just
do.
kind of doing his Reanimen, but on the bodies of the dead Invincibles. That is the thing. He is building Reanimen Invincibles. And they're having to as he says, I'm having to build new technology just to do this. And that's what Cecil is going and pushing him for. It's like, hey, you need to get this done because the Viltrumites could come back at any point, and I need an army of dead marks to help, because one mark could barely stop conquest.
Yeah.
What if there's an army of them? So it was just cool to see that is kicking off. And he has a girlfriend, because he goes on, rather than going on a date, they work late into the evening, so two weird technicians, or D.A. Sinclair and his lab technician, not the other technician.
Right.
You know what I mean.
I get you. Yes. It's an interesting one. And I must say, I didn't catch that those are the marks. Thanks for that, Chris. Thanks for that clarification.
Oh, there you go. That's the big kind of reveal.
Because it's that moment early on before Eve comes in to kind of ask permission to be put back out in the field. And Cecil doesn't want her to go out, that you see Cecil talking to D.A. Sinclair. And he's saying, look, it's going to be 2 weeks. You can't rush me on this. I need to have a little bit of time. It's only been about 24 hours maybe. So I just wasn't sure, but yes, of course it would be. That makes total sense. Why would Cecil leave the bodies of Invincibles out in the field when you can put them to a much more purposeful use, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then I guess the last thing in the wrap up is this commitment now that Mark will kill anyone who threatens his family. And it comes from that discussion that he's having with Oliver. He goes to visit Oliver. He's a bit distracted. And then tells Oliver, you know what? You're right. I know I said you were wrong, but you were right. When people stand in my way, when people show themselves to be who they really are, if they threaten my family, I'm going to kill them from now on, which is a huge change from the Mark we've had, questioning himself or berating himself over the person that he did think he murdered. Here he is now going out saying, you threaten my family, that's it, you're dead.
Yep. And again, this season has been about grey areas, and now there is a decision by Mark to be black or white.
Yeah.
Which is the point, I will not kill you until the point that you step over that line. And therefore, you've set that line. Like, that's it. You are now into the I can kill you mode.
Yeah.
So again, the removal of the grey, removal of that kind of unknown.
Exactly.
With the back and forth. So it is good to see.
Yeah. I suppose it's kind of interesting if you compare it to the kind of history of comic books, particularly Marvel and the DC comic books, where superheroes have a secret identity. The reason for that is so that the villains don't constantly go after their family. Here we've had multiple instances, including other versions of Mark coming to this realm who all know where his family are. And Mark's version of that is now going to be, well, if you come anywhere after my family, you're dead. That's it.
Yeah.
No more questioning, no more trying to save your life or put you in hospital. You're dead.
Yeah. And he's going to work on getting himself bigger, better, stronger, faster to fight and to kill.
Exactly.
That is the way.
Exactly. One final moment in the episode, we have a post-credit and the return of Damien Darkblood from season 1, who went off who was investigating Nolan in season 1 and disappeared at the end of the season. And now, well, he's actually wasn't investigating Nolan. He was going off to tell the Dark One in another realm that he's found a way to possibly bring him back. So Damien Darkblood kind of setting himself up as another villain after Mark, I guess.
Sure. Maybe. Like this is one of these post credits where you're like, where are you going to go with this one?
Yeah.
What does this
mean? Because it's also kind of couched in odd language around it. He doesn't ever say, there's this being superhero invincible on the planet. He says there's a new power coming back, an immense power set to return to Earth. They haven't had that power in eons, and this is the power that we can harness to bring you, the Dark One, back to the throne. He never once is saying, well, Oliver is who we're going to go after, or explaining what that is. It could be a completely different power that's about to raise up. Hey, it could be the mummy over in Egypt. That could be the power that Darkblood's going to harness. But we don't know who the Dark One is at all.
Yeah.
Yes, but he seems to be some kind of, well, he seems to be a demon. He seems to be something from hell.
The main, the assumption is Satan.
Yeah,
that's kind of like it's the main demon.
One of the devils, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess that's something we might see play out in season 5 at some point, because they have enough to go for season 4 anyway, with all the other credit sequences. Any other notes? Any other points? Any other things that you saw that you want to mention, Chris?
No, just with Damien, like it's like all the way back to season 1.
Yeah,
that is that level of a callback. So it's fun to see. It's fun to see what they'll do. Like, because again, it's now kind of okay. Well, you're going to go all the way back into that amount of history of. At this point, it will be season 4. What are you going to do? And then finally, for me, it's just I want to call out the animation, and like I know I've called it a lot, but it's just okay. You're going to do a punchy, kicky, explodey episode, and you're going to make callbacks. You're gonna have to ramp it up. So they do the train scene, but they ramp it up so much more, and they make it, and they show you like a kid getting his arm chopped off, like. Yeah. To the point where they add the squelching noise, and that audio really adds to such a horrific sight in 2D animation. So it's just this kind of like, you're taking this just strong visual sound, noise, and vision, kind of visual kind of art, and just bringing it all together to really just bring you something that is not just a cartoon. It's much more than that. It is a proper storyline. So yeah, just wanted to call it well done. Absolutely done such a great job. It was interesting. There's a point where that battle that Eve has between her and Conquest, suddenly I was going, oh, that's who the Eve character could be. She's the Pink Lantern almost. She's like the Green Lantern, but everything that she's manifesting is pink. And, I was like, oh, that actually almost makes the Green Lanterns even better than I've seen them visualized before. So the animation style they use, where she's pulling different things and different weapons from the air to attack Conquest, is also really cool in the episode. Yeah, they did such a great job. We know that they really focus on the last few episodes every single season, but this season overall, after a little bit of a shaky first episode, I think, which we did mention back then, most of the rest of the season has been absolutely fantastic, and such a great job stepping up. Great. So Derek, then kind of bring it all together. What's your final thoughts for this episode? Like, I thought you'd never shut up. I really liked the episode overall. It was a bit tough having another big battle episode. It's interesting having an episode where tons of Invincibles come and battle Mark, and then it ended with another Viltrumite battle. We've had a few of these now. Each season we've had a different Viltrumite. We had Anissa last season. We had the season before, we had Nolan, and we also had the Viltrumites on the Flaxian homeworld, on Oliver's homeworld as well. And you're wondering what they're going to do. How are they going to increase the tension in the battles? I think they did a really good job having this one-on-one battle between the unrelenting Conquest, who even calls out, if this was Anissa, she'd be telling you to give up, and she'd be telling you how great the world would be if you become a Viltrumite. I'm not here for that. I'm here to beat you until you beat me back, and we have a proper battle, and then I'll kill you, and I'll kill your family, and I'll take the planet. He was great, a really good, interesting villain. And then to have even just that little moment of him saying, I'm really lonely in this, but I still enjoy it. I'd just rather I wasn't lonely. Take that to your grave. I thought that was a really interesting twist on there. I could do without this many battles in the episodes. I think I even said it back on episode 4 of the show. I'm probably done with seeing broken bones and blood going everywhere. I'm probably done with that for a while. So having, again, these 2 episodes back to back was quite a lot of that. But they still made some great story points, and they still had some great moments of growth for each of the characters here, which is what they do really well in Invincible. So overall, enjoyed this episode and the season so far. How about yourself, Chris? What's your final thoughts on this episode of the season? Yeah, I for me, it's the back-to-back. So I really, even though I knew it was coming, the Conquest arc, I again, part of me forgot it was directly after the Invinci War.
I wonder how it took place in the comics. Like, was there even an issue because these kind of things, even though it's one episode of the show, that's usually about 3 or 4 issues of the comic books. Was there even one issue break?
I can't remember directly, but
Right.
it felt like there was a break. Like there probably was, or at least I probably took a break during reading. But again,
course,
the back to back of it, the back to back of this does make it a very much punchy 2 weeks in a row. And not that that's a bad thing. It's just that there is so much more to Invincible. There's so much more to the storylines. So what you do get from these episodes is great, but it's just punctuated back to back, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I think ultimately what they do with this character, ultimately the way that they have perfectly cast this character, and perfectly cast a number of characters, just tells you the level of commitment they have to this show, but also the just understanding of who the character is, who the actor, or what that actor can bring to it. Because, there's a host of voice actors, just standard voice actors, who could do this justice. Jeffrey Dean Morgan brings it to a different level.
Absolutely.
And brings that gravitas, if you will, to the role.
Absolutely, and most importantly, Glenn wins! Yay!
Yay! I'm surprised they did not do some form of baseball Easter egg.
I'm guaranteeing all over social media when this episode comes out, there will be lots of this.
Yes, exactly. But anyway, overall, really just loved it, and again, setting it up for season 4. The only downside now is the wait.
But the guarantee that we have is it won't be that long, because season 4 has been in production at the same time as season 3, so we're expecting it to come in 2026, not too far away. But we do want to hear your thoughts. We'd love to hear what you thought about season 3 of Invincible, so keep emailing us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, and keep popping over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/group/tvpodcastindustries. If there's a good bit of feedback on the finale, we'd love to come back and have a chat about Invincible as well. So keep sending it in, and in a couple of weeks' time we could come back and do a little wrap up of your thoughts on the finale and on season 3.
Yes, but we'll also be back for the Wheel of Time season 3. Prime Video jumps into a fantasy galaxy and world far, far away. Not Star Wars. No, The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan. Yes, Rand and the rest of the Althor group and the Aes Sedai will be back. It is going to be good.
One of your favourites there, Chris, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. So I'm getting back to back greatness. We are also in the MCU covering Daredevil Born Again season 1. It is a bone-crunchingly mature MCU Disney Plus show.
It certainly is. Yeah, feels like it jumped straight on board after Netflix, and this is the sequel to the Netflix Daredevil show. We have talked lots about it over the course of the last 10 years. We've talked about the Defenders shows and all the Daredevil shows. So we are so excited to be back in the world of Daredevil. Go and check that out over on tvpodcastindustries.com, and come join us in our journey in our 10th anniversary back with the Defenders. It's going to be fun.
Yes. And if you like the movies and have seen Captain America Brave New World, just check out the boys as they discuss their thoughts, musings, and opinions on none other than Captain America Brave New World over on tvpodcastindustries.com and all the usual places.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us once again for another Invincible season. And Chris, thank you so much for chatting along with me for every episode of Invincible. This is the show that you brought to us, and I'm really enjoying it, and I have enjoyed it every season. So thanks so much once again.
No problem.
We
I
will
thought you'd
be-
never shut up.
We will, of
got
course,
it
be
in
back
there.
on this feed right here on the Boys feed later this year when Gen V returns for its second season, the Boys spin-off. And the final season of the Boys is in production at the moment. Chris, did you hear the big announcement of who's coming back for the final season of the Boys and who's going to be on the final season of the Boys?
Micah.
We are going to have, yes, the reunion of the three major characters from Supernatural are all going to be back for the final season, reuniting with Eric Kripke. I think that's now every major cast member from Supernatural who has appeared in an episode of The Boys. So yeah, we have all of them appearing in the final season of The Boys.
Not yet. We still need Felicia Day. She has to turn up, and then we're done.
In fairness, I would call her a guest actor on Supernatural.
Okay.
Call her a major character.
I would not argue because, again, that is a deep, dark hole that I have no knowledge on.
Excellent.
Until then, thank you so much for joining us, and keep watching, keep listening, and keep being invincible. Bye.
Bye.